You're not broken. You're simply standing at the crossroads where every man who ever tried to live with meaning has once stood. It's late, maybe past midnight, and the blue light from the screen stains your face. The room hums with the quiet electricity of fatigue. Coffee gone cold, tabs multiplying like the restless thoughts that won't silence themselves. You scroll, click, wonder. Every move a small act of searching. You tell yourself you're just tired, but deep down you sense something heavier, the quiet recognition that you've been moving without moving. You've been breathing, but not alive. It feels as if the map you've lived by has dissolved, leaving you in fog thick enough to swallow sound. You wonder if you missed some secret signal, some hidden sign that was supposed to tell you where to turn. You think of all the times you said, "Tomorrow I'll change." Yet here you are again, trapped in repetition that looks like life but tastes like decay. But before you label this as failure, pause. Every warrior has walked into fog. Even the ones who left legend behind once stared at the same gray emptiness and felt the same weight on their chest. The difference is not that they knew the way, the difference is that they kept walking. The samurai understood something our generation forgot. The path does not appear before movement. It appears because of movement. When Musashi said he found truth in the way of strategy, he wasn't talking about combat, he was talking about this moment right now, when a man faces himself and chooses not to turn away. The fog is not punishment, it's passage. The world told you clarity is comfort, that success feels clean. But the ancient masters knew. Before the blade was sharp, steel endured countless strikes. Before mind was calm, it was shattered again and again. What you call confusion is simply the fire still shaping you. Burnout is not the end of your energy. It's a confrontation with what your energy has been serving. You've built towers out of distraction and called them progress. You've mistaken motion for meaning. But this exhaustion breaking over you, it's sacred. It's the spirit's way of saying, enough of the counterfeit. You are not lost. You have arrived at the gate of transformation. The samurai's life was not the poetry of glory you've seen in films. It was repetition, humility, and the patience to bow before the unseen. His battles were waged against hesitation, against comfort, against the endless craving for certainty. Alone with the sound of his own breathing, he practiced stillness until movement became pure instinct. He did not seek motivation. He cultivated resolve. He did not demand that the fog lift. He learned to walk in it. The question is not whether you will find the light. The question is whether you will keep moving when you cannot see. What if this confusion is not your enemy but your initiation? What if being lost is a preface to awakening? Every man who looks for his purpose must first lose the false ones. Every disciplined life begins in disorder. The samurai called this the moment of forging, the trial through which metal remembers it was meant to become a blade. So consider this ache, this fatigue, this endless noise within you. It is not failure. It is the forge, and there is something inside you waiting to be tempered by it. Step into the fog with quiet momentum. The blade does not ask whether the whetstone is kind. It only trusts the sharpening. As rain begins to tap against the window, imagine it washing away the noise of the world, revealing the faint outline of an ancient dojo standing in the mist, a bridge between centuries. The soft sound of rain becomes a sound of breath, of stillness, of readiness. Before the sword was sharp, the mind was sharpened. And now, here you stand, at that same threshold, ready to begin again. Discipline was a samurai's true art, not combat, not blood, not conquest. The movies might fill their story with jewels and blades, but the truth lived in silence. Most of a warrior's life unfolded in still mornings, in measured breaths, in rooms so quiet that even the sound of cloth rubbing against tatami became a kind of prayer. While the modern man runs from boredom with glowing screens and endless entertainment, the samurai trained himself to find truth inside it. The modern man escapes his restlessness through distraction. The ancient warrior faced it through ritual. Before he ever drew his sword, he sat on his knees in Caesar, spine straight, mind steady, body both tense and at peace. It was humility made physical, a reminder that the greatest fight was never against another but against his own scattered thoughts. This posture was a vow carved into muscle memory, to remain present, even when nothing seemed to move. The modern man, hungry for stimulation, treats stillness as death, yet the samurai knew stillness as a birthplace of all motion. From Caesar arose Zanshin, the remaining mind, the sharpened awareness that outlives every strike, the calm that holds its shape even as a fight ends. It is the art of not collapsing when the deed is done, of sustaining presence when adrenaline fades. Today, people move quickly but think loosely. They chase task after task, but between them they fall asleep at the wheel of life. Zanshin is the opposite rhythm. It is life without leak, energy intact after every act. And anchoring the two, Caesar and Zanshin, was Kokoro, the unity of heart and mind, the quiet fire that gives direction to effort. The warrior's courage did not come from rage. It came from alignment, from the certainty that heart and mind walked the same path. That harmony made him immovable. Imagine living that way, to be wholly there in every gesture, every word, every task. Modern fatigue is not caused by too much activity, but by too much divided attention. We spend life half committed to our wake, to our relationships, to our own promises, and wonder why we never feel whole. The samurai, by contrast, poured himself entirely into one act at a time. Sweeping a floor was no less sacred than drawing a blade. He understood that the mind trained in simplicity becomes unstoppable in difficulty. When the world shook, he did not panic. His breath remained his focus. His focus became his fortress. The rituals that held him were simple. A tea prepared with precision, a meditation held before dawn, a bowl before every practice. Each one a rehearsal of presence under pressure. He was not escaping chaos. He was taming it, containing it, learning to breathe inside it without drowning. The modern self chases relief. The ancient mind sought mastery. Only through repetition does chaos cease to intimidate. The dojo was more than a place of fighting. It was a mirror of the inner world. Its silence reflected every flicker of weakness, every tremor of doubt, until discipline smoothed the tremors into still water. When the practice began, noise didn't vanish. It was observed until it softened into focus. The man who learns to sit with disorder learns to wield it. What we call burnout is often not fatigue from work, but fatigue from avoidance. It is the friction of a man trying to run from his own imbalance. The samurai faced that friction daily and made it his teacher. Under strain, he discovered depth. Under repetition, he found peace. When modern pressure rises, we look outward for distraction. He looked inward for alignment. And in that quiet space between breath and action lies the difference between collapse and composure. You do not master life by removing pain. You master life by remaining fully alive within it. This is where the path of discipline truly begins. Not in the chase of feeling better, but in the cultivation of presence that endures even when everything else falls apart. Burnout does not arrive as explosion. It creeps in like fog rolling through the ribs, soft, gray, almost invisible, until everything feels heavy for no reason. You wake and reach for the phone before your thoughts even form, thumb moving with reflex more ancient than hunger. Somewhere beneath the surface there was once purpose, but now all that remains is a ritual of checking, scrolling, comparing. You tell yourself this is productivity, research, connection, relevance, but the silence afterward tells the truth. The mind has become a battlefield of tabs and notifications masquerading as progress. The modern world calls this dedication. The samurai would have called it hallucination. In ancient Japan, idleness was dishna. In modern life, constant activity hides emptiness. We have replaced rest with distraction, reflection with refreshed pages, deep mastery with endless multitasking. The warrior's code was clear: presence or nothing. Ours has inverted it, everything at once, yet nowhere fully. Think of the overworked creative, his eyes hollow from late-night design tweaks that lose both soul and meaning. His body sits trapped in a chair as his mind races towards success metrics that keep moving. He calls it the grind, but what is really chasing is proof that he still exists. Think of the man who times every workday, tracks every calorie, logs every minute like a soldier counting bullets, yet still feels soft inside. He wonders why he feels no victory, even when the numbers climb. The reason: progress disconnected from presence becomes vanity. And then there's a quiet emptiness that comes after years of optimization, a schedule that runs perfectly, but a soul that doesn't. The myth of modern ambition whispers that every moment must produce measurable results. But the result we lose is aliveness itself. There's a false god ruling this age, the god of perpetual progress. It promises salvation through acceleration, sanctity through output. It teaches that rest is weakness and that if you pause, the world will leave you behind. But nothing of value can grow in a soil till without pause. The samurai trained, rested, reflected, repeated. One motion, one breath, one correction. Not endless movement, but meaningful motion. The false god demands sacrifice of depth for the illusion of speed. It turns productivity into pacification, a dopamine loop disguised as discipline. Each notification becomes a pulse of false achievement. Each scroll a counterfeit act of creation. It looks like work, feels like purpose, but leaves behind no weight of fulfillment. The mind becomes a junkyard of half-finished thoughts and pseudo-accomplishments. This is why silence feels unbearable to the untrained man, because it exposes how little of his activity comes from intention and how much comes from avoidance. He mistakes inner stillness for nothingness, when in truth it is the birthplace of strength. The samurai's breath was his anchor. He could stand unshaken in storms because he had the courage to stand still when others ran. The modern man collapses not because he lacks power, but because he wastes it on motion without direction. His mind is a wheel that spins faster the emptier it becomes. He calls it ambition, but it's closer to fear. The fear of being unseen, unloved, or left behind. And so he fills every quiet second with noise, every open space with tasks, because silence will confront him with himself. Zen teaches the opposite rhythm, move with totality or not at all. Every action either whole or hollow. There is no salvation in speed. There is redemption only in sincerity. The samurai sharpened his sword slowly, methodically, caring for it even when there was no war, because discipline was his proof of alignment, not his chase for validation. Our world has forgotten how to polish anything. We only replace. We consume new methods of productivity the way we consume entertainment hungrily and without digestion. Burnout is not the exhaustion of the body, but the corrosion of meaning. You are not fatigued from effort. You are fatigued from effort without soul. Like a blade drawn too many times without oil, your edge dulls not from battle, but from friction against mindless repetition. The world says, move faster. Zen whispers, move once completely. The difference between the two is life itself. When the creative pauses to breathe fully before the next stroke, when the worker drapes small intention over a single moment, when the restless man sits still long enough to meet his own heartbeat, all of these acts rebuild power. Silence is medicine, though at first it tastes like death. Because to hear your own stillness is to admit the hollowness of the noise you've been worshipping. This confrontation is the beginning of healing. Burnout cannot be solved by more motion. It can only be redeemed by returning attention to the present. The samurai enter the dojo not to escape the world, but to face it through simplicity. You too must build your own silence. Dojo not a place away from life, but a way of being within it. Step back from the flashing notifications, the false urgency, the loops that feed distraction. Let your mind cease spinning long enough for truth to settle like dust after a storm. You can't rebuild yourself in the same noise that broke you. Step into quiet, and from that still ground, you can learn again the rhythm of deliberate motion. The myth of transformation is that it arrives all at once, that some grand moment of awakening will descend like lightning and split your life into before and after. But every man who has built real strength knows that change does not roar. It whispers. It comes in quiet repetition, in small sacred acts repeated beyond fatigue or emotion. The samurai called this way of life kaizen, the path of continuous, humble improvement. To him, progress was not an event. It was devotion. Each morning, long before the sun rose, he performed the same subtle gestures, cleaning the blade, aligning tools, adjusting posture, breathing with precision. None of these tasks offered instant reward, yet all of them trained consistency. He understood the hidden law of mastery, that what you do once is habit only in seed, but what you do daily becomes identity. The modern world begs for sudden leaps, viral breakthroughs, transformation unlocked by some secret technique. But the ancient path teaches that success accumulated grain by grain becomes unshakable. The samurai trusted increments because he knew anything built overnight can vanish by morning. A blade forged slowly can outlast nations. Kaizen means focusing not on perfection, but correction. 1% better each day. That phrase might sound mechanical, but for the warrior it was sacred mathematics, proof that every failure contains material for refinement. Reflection, not punishment. Refinement, not shame. This is a Kaizen loop. Reflect, refine, recommit. The Western mind treats routine as imprisonment. The Eastern mind treats it as liberation. Because when your actions are ordered, your spirit is free to move without confusion. The samurai did not rely on motivation. He felt a ritual. The body performed. The heart followed. Imagine starting your morning as a modern dojo. You wake, stretch, hydrate, write a single line of intent, maybe even clean the workspace with slow precision. These simple rituals are not trivial. They are modern acts of alignment. Each one small enough to succeed, powerful enough to signal to your mind. The warrior is awake. Kaizen asks for patience in a world addicted to pace. You will be tempted to sprint, to overhaul your entire existence overnight. The result will always be collapse. Massive change burns hot and fast. Incremental change burns steady and bright. This slow furnace is where mastery is smelted. The samurai measured cuts on bamboo again and again, not because he liked repetition, but because each swing was a prayer to precision. He was not chasing excitement, he was chasing depth. That same principle applies to every modern endeavor. Writing, training, creating, leading. It is not intensity that separates the elite. It is a refusal to compromise the small things. When your rituals tighten, so does your focus. And when your focus strengthens, chaos loses its power. The Kaizen mindset turns life itself into formal practice. Each gesture, each choice, each breath seen not as obstacle, but opportunity for refinement. The chaotic mind asks, what am I missing? The disciplined heart asks, what can I improve? There is profound freedom in this narrowing of aim. You no longer need to conquer the whole mountain. You need only take the next correct step with absolute presence. A man who rises each day committed to one clean action will surpass the man who awakens to 10 unkept promises. Most people collapse not from lack of will but from lack of order. Kaizen gives that order without rigidity. It teaches balance, structure firm enough to hold you, flexible enough to adapt. By judging yourself less and correcting yourself more, you unconsciously become the disciplined archetype you've been chasing. The road of small victories reshapes character from the inside out. Over time, consistency becomes strength, strength becomes identity, and identity becomes peace. The samurai's world was not easier. He simply learned not to argue with repetition. The polish of the blade was not different from the polish of the soul. To clean the dust from the sword was to clean the dust from the mind. If you treat every small act as an altar, even the mundane becomes mystical. You rise not to motivation. It is fleeting, emotional, momentary. You fall to ritual steady, proven, eternal. In every era, the man who commits to ritual commands his destiny, because his habits become his environment, and his environment becomes his nature. The philosopher and the warrior meet here, where motion and meaning merge. And from this merging emerges not a man waiting for purpose, but a man crafting it by hand, cut by cut, day by day every morning. A samurai woke not to question his place, but to practice his vows. He did not look for motivation because his identity was already written in motion. The moment his feet touched tatami, he lived his code. That code, his bushido, was more than moral guidance. It was a structural skeleton for the spirit. Modern man has lost the skeleton. He wakes confused, flooded by options, unsure what to chase, unsure even of who he is meant to be. His life bends with every algorithm, his emotions dictated by the morning's noise. He wonders why he feels hollow, why every victory evaporates before it feels real, why focus crumbles by noon. It is because he lives without an inner law. Without principle, a man becomes weathered by circumstance. The samurai knew this truth intimately. Without a vow, direction shatters. He carried his code like his blade close, polished, uncompromised. His decisions were not experiments of emotion. They were executions of principle. Giants fall not for lack of skill, but for lack of self-command. Bushido was built to solve that. It replaced doubt with duty, chaos with structure, reaction with alignment. The way of the warrior, contrary to myth, was not the way of violence, it was the way of alignment. Each vow carved clarity into the noise. Your modern Bushido begins in stillness, where confusion has no territory. Take a quiet moment to write your vows, not goals, not outcomes, but guiding laws. 5 are ancient, yet enduring. Integrity, presence, resolve, compassion, mastery. Integrity means living so that decision and value are indistinguishable. You do what is right because it is inseparable from who you are. Presence is attention refined to an art, the ability to fully inhabit every breath, every conversation, every task. Resolve is the unshakable spine that continues when interest fades. Compassion is strength tamed by understanding. It is a recognition that gentleness sharpens power rather than softening it. And mastery is a lifelong devotion to refinement, not endless progress for applause, but quiet excellence for its own sake. These 5 vows are not ideas to admire, they are daily commitments. To act without them is to drift. To return to them is to reforge identity. These vows are built in both motion and stillness. The samurai wove meditation into maintenance, each chore done with a reverence of ceremony. In his world, even tea was battle training for the mind. The tea ceremony with perfection disguised as simplicity, every gesture deliberate, every sound precise, every movement echoing humility. Stillness was never separate from discipline. It was its mirror. To live in this way today is to bring sacred focus into the small. When you wash dishes, breathe with awareness. When you write an email, align posture and mindset. When you walk, notice your breath and surroundings instead of sprinting into thought. Routine becomes ritual, action becomes alignment. The man who learns to infuse stillness into motion builds an inner dojo wherever he stands. The practical structure your code can borrow from 3 core virtues of Bushido. GI, righteousness, making decisions with clean precision, free of hesitation and moral fog. Rei, respect, treating every person, even rivals, as mirrors showing you to yourself. Respect is control of ego, the refusal to poison victory with arrogance. And Makoto, sincerity, when word and deed unite. No hidden motives, no self-deception. A man who says he will act, acts. A man who promises silence, keeps it. These virtues are not ornamental, they are functional armor. In a culture obsessed with expression, Bushido reminds you that expression without integrity is noise. When you live by GI, Rei, and Makoto, your energy stops bleeding into regret. Every motion gains gravity because it carries meaning. To sustain balance. The code must hold both sides of the blade, yang and yin. Yang discipline acts decisively, cuts through hesitation, sets boundaries, builds systems. Yin receptivity listens, reflects, and lets go control when life instructs surrender. Strength without stillness turns brittle. Stillness without motion turns inert. True power lives in rhythm, not rigidity. The warrior who can strike with fury one moment and bow the next remains whole. He knows when to command and when to yield, when to fight and when to rest, when to speak and when to stay silent. This rhythm is rarer than ambition, yet infinitely more enduring. Living by code does more than organize time. It rebuilds trust in yourself. Every broken promise to self fragments identity, like cracks in steel. Each kept vow seals those cracks. When you live aligned with your declared principles, your nervous system stops questioning your worth. Certainty returns, not arrogance, but grounded conviction. Suddenly choices become simple. Energy no longer leaks into inner debate. A man of code does not need constant self-analysis. He acts, knowing his actions flow from meaning. That is freedom, not the absence of restraint, but the presence of alignment. The samurai carried this peace into every arena of life. It made him dangerous because he was resolved. There was nothing to hide, nothing to prove, nothing to fear. That same possibility exists now, in you. Write your code. Speak it aloud. Etch it somewhere you can see. And when confusion comes, as it inevitably will, consult the code, not the emotion. Modern life will test you with endless opinion and noise, alluring shortcuts that promise speed and deliver hollowness. Your Bushido is a compass that keeps you aimed toward mastery instead of comfort. Once you know your code, every path becomes your path. What matters is not where you walk, but how. The world may remain chaotic, but a man aligned moves through it unshaken. He does not wander looking for purpose. He brings purpose with him. The path no longer defines a warrior. The warrior defines a path that a samurai did not wait for calm skies to train. He learned to move through rain, through hunger, through fatigue, through pain so deep it blurred the edges of vision. To him, hardship was an interruption. It was instruction. The modern man retreats when life grows heavy. He believes discipline begins when comfort returns. But the warrior understood something eternal. Conditions will never be perfect, and waiting for clarity is the most subtle form of surrender. Musashi wrote that the obstacle is not separate from the way. The hill you climb is not blocking your path, it is your path. Every difficulty you resist carries a lesson that would have made you unshakable. Every failure withheld from reflection keeps you untested and intempered. The world today teaches evasion. Self-care misread as indulgence, comfort mistaken for healing. But the samurai looked directly into the storm and called it the forge. The heat that melts iron makes steel. There was a term for this daily trial, gwoji, practice without gap. It meant training not only when spirit was high or when inspiration sparkled, but equally when the body rebelled and the heart faltered. Practice was continuous, seamless with life. Every hardship became repurposed into training. Cold days built resilience. Hunger built patience. Loss built perspective. Nothing was wasted because nothing was exempt. The modern habit of postponing discipline until motivation returns is the inverse of mastery. The blade must be polished even when unseen. The moment you stop practicing presence is the moment dullness begins. To train without gap means to refuse the illusion of later. Life is the dojo, and everything that strikes you is another teacher. The mistake that humbles you, the rejection that bruises pride, the silence after failure, all of its sharpening edge and awareness. At the heart of this relentless cultivation was another ancient principle, shugyo, a journey into deliberate hardship for cleansing of spirit. The samurai sought trials rather than avoiding them, walking barefoot through their own limits to burn away weakness. This was not cruelty toward self, but sacred confrontation. Pain stripped the excess, left only essence. Modern psychology calls this exposure. Zen calls it purification. When you look into adversity and you don't run, the fog of illusion dissolves. You see what remains when comfort dies, and that real self is uncorrupted strength. Hardship is a mirror that shows you whether your bushido is theory or truth. Talking of resolve is easy when the sun shines. Living it under relentless storm tests its work. Toa samurai. Every challenge was part of the internal forge, the place where raw metal meets fire and hammers until shape emerges. Steel cannot choose the conditions of its formation. It can only yield to process and trust the craftsman's blows. You are both the steel and the craftsman. Every hardship you endure refines your edges. You do not become disciplined once the storm ends. You become disciplined because you chose to stay awake within it. The more heat you face with presence, the more defined you become. Without fire, no sharpness. Without resistance, no mastery. You cannot avoid pain, but you can choose what it means. To see pain as punishment is to break. To see it as training is to transcend. The man who makes a dojo out of adversity cannot be broken, only polished. When the storm comes, do not retreat indoors waiting for it to pass. Stand in it. Move through it deliberately. Feel its weight, its bite, its chaos, and carve alignment through every gust. Gwoji practice without gap is not an ideal, it is a lifestyle. The path does not pause because of weather or mood. Your task is simple. Breathe, posture, act, repeat. As the rain begins to slow and the wind softens, look inward. Something inside you has shifted. Chaos could not break you, it refined you. The noise falls away. The ground glistens. Calm returns. And within that silence, a new warrior breathes for the first time. After all the striving, all the structure, all the vows and sharpening, every true warrior returns to the same quiet lesson, emptiness. In Zen, they call it mu, not the void of despair, but the openness beyond distinction, the space where everything belongs because nothing is clung to. The samurai spent his life learning precision, only to end embracing simplicity again. He trained to master technique until technique disappeared, until movement became natural, until effort dissolved into grace. This is a paradox of mastery. The deeper you go, the less you need. The man who once sought control discovers that real power is in release. The same truth waits for you. Being lost was never about losing direction. It was about clutter, layers of noise, expectation, and ego had buried the quiet center beneath. Now that you've carved rhythm from chaos, you must learn to unclench. To become empty is not to lose. It is to make space for aliveness to return. The burnt-out mind always hunts for answers, as if purpose were a puzzle with one missing piece. But Zen sees purpose not as discovery. It is expression through being. The samurai did not meditate to find truth. He meditated to become so still that truth could reveal itself. In the same way, your search must now soften. The healed man is not the one who has conquered uncertainty, but the one who can move through it without panic. To move in stillness is to act without demand for outcome. Imagine standing inside a dojo after the storm. No sound but breath, no audience, no timeline. The sword rests in your hands, cool and weightless. You draw it once, slowly, through air so silent it hums. That sound, the single sigh of steel, is a voice of presence itself. No tension, no triumph, no trying. Just one unbroken motion. In that instant, you understand that discipline is not what binds you, it is what frees you from indecision. Zen calls this Shoshin the beginner's mind. The greatest masters guard it with the same sacredness they give to their blades. It is a mind that sees freshly even after decades of practice, the spirit humble enough to learn again after every victory, the courage to start without arrogance. When you forget Shoshin, mastery turns brittle. When you keep it, you remain alive. In modern life, the same principle applies. Reset often. Empty the mental clutter of theories, regrets, and dogma. Breathe as if today were your first training. The beauty of the samurai's way lies in this paradox. He mastered so that he could forget mastery, trained so that he could return to spontaneity. The empty mind is not blank. It is attentive, transparent, ready. It reflects the world clearly because it carries nothing unnecessary. To become empty is to finally merge discipline and peace. No longer are you wrestling with the weight of doing more, being more. You simply move, speak, rest, act, with integrity already woven into each motion. The fog that once suffocated you becomes a breath of dawn. Burnout dissolves not because work disappears, but because resistance does. Action and awareness fuse. You do not chase meaning, you radiate it. The still mind no longer fears losing control because it understands control was an illusion. Presence is enough. This is why the samurai could face death without trembling. He had already emptied himself of clinging. Whatever remained was real. Now picture the world quieting around you. The storms you endured, the fire that forged you, the rituals that disciplined you, all of it has brought you here, to the clean silence between heartbeats. You are both nothing and everything. No longer trying to prove, no longer fighting the fog. Just breathing, aware. The mirror of your spirit reflects without distortion. There is no destination now, only the eternal beginning. The path begins again, always now. The whisper moves through the empty room, steady and calm. And now, you begin again. Every journey reaches a point where philosophy must become blood, where ideas must take shape as vows, and discipline must leave the page to live in the bones. You began as a man lost in fog, chasing shadow after shadow, watching purpose slip between your fingers. But now, through stillness, repetition, and fire, something solid has returned. It is no longer theory. It is pulse. The journey was never toward becoming something new, but toward remembering who you are when all distraction falls away. The samurai's life ended not in philosophy but in embodiment. His bushido was not a text he read. It was a breath-by-breath contract with his own spirit. Now comes your contract, your public declaration. Because a man who lives by hidden intention remains half alive. Only when he speaks his. Code aloud does it become real. Take a blank page. Write slowly, as if each word could cut or heal. Begin with the 3 pillars. Who I am, what I serve, how I practice. Under each, carve the truth that has survived your storms. Who I am is not a resume of achievements or collage of failures. It is a distilled essence of your chosen virtues. Write your own creed. I am a man of integrity. My words align with my actions. I am present, aware of each breath, unshaken by noise. I am resolute, driven not by comfort, but by commitment. I am compassionate, strong enough to understand others without losing myself. I am devoted to mastery, not merely in work, but in the art of living. These are your internal coordinates, the anchors that hold you steady when temptation, chaos, or despite whisper otherwise. Next, what I serve. Every code needs a cause, or decays into narcissism. Ask yourself, what is larger than me, yet I am willing to serve daily? The samurai served honor, clan, or mastery of the way itself. What do you serve? It might be your family, your craft, your faith, or the pursuit of wisdom. Serve something that humbles you, something you may never finish building. Purpose without surrender rots into arrogance. Surrender without purpose withers into apathy. The balance of the two, direction with humility, is what keeps your path alive. Your declaration must name this devotion clearly. When life presses hard, when confusion rears again, your answer is already written, and therefore you stay the course finally. How I practice. This is where the spiritual becomes tangible. The samurai's meditation was not escape, it was rehearsal for battle. Your rituals are the scaffolding of your inner fortress. List them without vanity. Your mornings a quiet reflection before screens awaken. Your training done not for image but for endurance. Your journal entries. Your evening gratitude. Your simple orderliness. These might seem small, but they are the proof of integrity. Every time you follow through, you confirm that your words were not decoration. Practice is a mirror that makes belief visible. This section of your declaration is alive. It must evolve, just as a blade improves with care. You will break routines, stumble, return. Each return reaffirms commitment. A man who continues despite interruption is stronger than the man who never falls. When you finish writing, read it aloud not for dramatics, but for resonance. Let the sound vibrate through your body. Every syllable spoken in sincerity sends your intentions deeper into the nervous system. Writing shapes thought. Voice commands reality. This is your promise to yourself, your silent handshake with eternity. Carry it within you as a samurai carried his code, unseen but unmistakably felt in every gesture. When temptation comes, your declaration answers. When confusion returns, your declaration directs. As you repeat it, day after day, anxiety yields to rhythm. Chaos bows to clarity. Remember, the goal is not perfection, it is alignment. Do not seek to become another man. Become fully responsible for your spirit. Those who constantly compare lose their edge. Those who take ownership gain peace. You are no longer the man searching amid smoke for identity. You are the man shaping identity through presence. The same fog that once blinded you now softens the world's edges because you see beyond it. The same exhaustion that folded you now fuels a discipline that does not depend on motivation. You have discovered that purpose is not a prize to be found. It is a posture to be maintained. And so the loop closes where it began, though everything is quietly transformed. The fatigued wanderer has become the still warrior. The noise of the world continues, but within there is rhythm. Each small action rings with the sound of your declaration. Each breath affirms your choice to live awake. If there was a secret hidden in all the ancient teachings, it was never about conquest, it was about coherence. The fog never lifts all at once, but step by step, in silence and resolve, the path becomes